Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the AFLW show for this evening. I am joined by Nick, another Nick. Welcome, Nick. First time on the AFLW show with me. How are you?
Shannon, thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
It's good. It's good. Lots to unpack tonight. As many of you would have seen last night, was probably not our greatest performance, but we'll dig a little bit deeper into that tonight with our special guest. But without further ado, let's get the show started.
Vesio with all the experience in the world, she kicks.
And there it is, just on half time. Maddie Prespakis.
I love the little intro. It's probably one of the greatest things that I've got.
Some good computer work there.
It is some really good computer work. And I thank the Blue Abroad team for putting that little one together for the show. It's great. So let's just cut to the chase. Not happy.
No. That's probably our worst performance in a couple of years. I know we had some close losses in 2021 and 2020 went pretty well. So worst loss since 2019, 2018. Can't remember all of them, but
yeah. Wow.
No, it was definitely the worst team performance we've seen in a while. And sure, having to fly last minute up to Queensland and losing two players at the last moment and all that stuff, but the effort was pretty inexcusable.
I cannot agree with you more. I'm at the point where I'm sitting here. I was watching the game and I'm just like, is there going to be a moment when you're going to actually put in a little bit more effort and like give Maddie a chop out? Like I've said it on nearly every show so far when we're previewing games or previewing players that we need to find someone to help Maddie Prespakis. She did it all on her own last night. And again, it's just one of those things that I'm bitterly disappointed with. And I'm just looking at some of the stats of some of the players last night, and Prespakis got 27 touches. Debutant Keely Shearer got 5. Brooke Walker got 5. She was brought back into the side for her speed, and I barely saw her. She was not noticeable at all. Brooke Vickers, who was another debutant last night, got 10 disposals. Nicola Stevens, 6. Lisa O'Day, 8, down by her standards. And Jessica Delpos hasn't really shown me much since she's come across from the Giants. So
no. Delpos was really good in the first season playing as an on-baller. And then since then, the Giants have sort of phased her slowly out and slowly back into the back line in less important roles. It was a strange addition, I thought, at the time. And like the O'Day one, it seems like they're really caught up with players who were really good in 2016, 2017. Not so much in 2022. Not sure. The list build, I'm sure we'll get into it, has been pretty questionable since our 2020 season. And those two moves in particular really stand out and were pretty evident last night.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I do want to highlight one shining light in that lineup last night, and that was Courtney Jones.
Yes.
She's been probably one of my favourite so far this year. You can't fault her effort. You can't fault her attack of the football, and you can't fault her pressure. 3 goals.
She hits the scoreboard.
Well, she kicked pretty much our score last night. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was a bit stiff not to get that mark paid to her in round 1 against Collingwood. That was right in front of us, and we were just...
Oh, yeah, that was a mark. It just was. So
it just was. Anything against Collingwood just was. So, but no, I'm bitterly disappointed. And like on the flip side, you have a look at the Brisbane team. Yes, they are quite strong. They're quite athletic. They're very fit. They pretty much look like they were running on water last night. They just glided across Metricon Stadium like it was the smallest ground on earth. They were just cutting through the midfield, and it was always 4 Brisbane Lions players against 1 Carlton. If that doesn't show me a lack of intensity and a lack of intent in general, I don't know what is. And
Yep.
I don't know whether I put it down to lack of fitness, or whether it's a coaching directive, and we'll get into Daniel Harford a little bit later. But we were talking before the show, and you were mentioning something about the girls' fitness and where it's kind of sitting at the moment. Did you want to?
Yeah. So the mail that I got before the season was that the girls, and I don't even know if it's necessarily their fault or whether it's the coaching staff or how it all works, but that during the preseason they'd sort of plateaued. They'd reached a point, and then the coaching staff couldn't get any more out of them, couldn't get any more improvement or fitness. And if that's the case, it certainly showed up yesterday because Brisbane is the best coach team in the league. Craig Starcevich is the best coach in AFLW. He has been since season one. And at the end of the day, they completely outhunted us. We had the same amount of disposals as them, and they laid, an extra 17 tackles?
Yeah.
We laid 32, which I guess is another thing. If Katie Loynes was still in the team, do you think we would have laid 32 tackles? I don't think so. I think she would have driven the standards higher. I think she would have laid 7 herself. So, it's another one where they're sort of, we've got to force out the veteran. She's getting old. Don't know how much time she has left in the game, but the standards drop when you take out a leader like that.
Exactly. Well, speaking of leaders, Karen Harrington led from the front again last night with 21 disposals and was marking everything that was coming her way. But you can't just have one or two players carrying the team. Like 50 inside 50s to 30, 11 marks inside 50 to 5, 103 contested possessions to 98, 49 to 32 tackles, and 19 to 14 hit outs. Like, it speaks for itself. Like the kicks and the disposals is actually quite interesting. Like, for the fact that we had 4 less disposals than them for the entire match just shows how well we use the ball and our efficiency with the ball in hand. Non-existent. 9 goals 9 to 4 goals 4 for the result. I mean, we'd get the ball into the 50 and it would rebound as quick as it got in there. So it's like, well, we're lacking forwards for one. I know Darcy, they haven't had the greatest start to 2022 compared to their seasons prior. So it's difficult. And when you've got a first-year player being your leading goal kicker at the moment, a lot of questions have got to start being asked.
So Vesio is an interesting one because this was my worry when we were all like, let Harris go, She was poor in 2021. We'll get a good trade for her. Our forward line is great without her. We don't need her. My worry was, okay, well, what about the flow-on effect? The flow-on effect of Harris being out means Vesio gets the best forward. It means they also have to play deeper inside 50, which is not where Vesio's strengths are. When she, in 2019, start of 2020, she was playing that deep full forward role and just couldn't find the footy. It was when Harford said, okay, get up the ground, get into the back line, get into the midfield, take marks around the ground. That's when Vesio really found her touch again. And she was allowed to do that. Sorry, they were allowed to do that because Harris was in the team playing that marking role and also taking the best defender.
That's right.
With Harris gone, now you've got Vesio taking the best defender. I mean, Stevens takes the second best defender. We've seen Georgia G having to play as a marking forward at times, and that's definitely not her strength. So,
no.
Yeah, I think Vesio has been hurt by the lack of Harris and maybe even the lack of Al Downey as well.
Well, that's it. And Chris hit the nail on the head. How do they play so lackluster after a 9-day break? There was a clear game plan against the Cats, and you could tell that there was a clear game plan. And it was just, it reeked of AFL boys. And it's sad because we've put all this love and appreciation into our girls team and we show up, but they don't. And they haven't yet. Like that Collingwood game, they didn't really give me much. And Geelong aren't exactly the strongest opponent. And when you play against the strongest teams, you want to have at least put in some effort. Like I would have been more than happy to lose to Brisbane last night if there was an effort behind the loss.
Yeah.
Like there was no heart. There was no pride in the pride jumper or no pride in the actual logo on there.
What we've seen is that our game plan doesn't hold up against good teams. We saw that last year as well.
No.
Against the teams beneath us, we can chip the ball around, we can move the ball, we can hold up stoppages. But against Collingwood, against Brisbane, it's clearly not good enough.
No, and we'll touch on who we're playing this weekend, hopefully, because every time we do a preview the last 2-3 weeks, it's changed the next day. But you were mentioning to me earlier today that you've put together a bit of a list of players that have come and gone since the start of 2020. So if you, go for it. Let us know in the comments if you agree with Nick's list of ticks and crosses, and let us know your thoughts, and we'll share some on the comments.
So more or less, in 2020, had the season not ended where it ended, we would have gone up against North Melbourne in a 50-50 game and had a chance to win a grand final. We come in the next year as premiership favourites and we miss finals. We come into this year after trading away a bunch of players and we're nowhere near a finals team. So what happened? So I'm just going to look at every list change we made since the end of the 2020 season. We delisted 4 players, none of whom were of any real consequence. We traded Sarah Hosking to Richmond for pick 15. So that was the first move. Heart and soul player, not the most talented, but lays tackles, gets the hard work done on the inside. Pick 15 is a good return. So I'm not necessarily giving that across, but what we did was we traded that pick 15 to Melbourne for Elise O'Day. And that gets a huge cross because O'Day was brought in to play as an on-baller and just can't. She's been moved forward, she's been moved back, she's been used as a utility. So that gets a big cross. I think they traded a first-round draft pick for a person who was going to retire. She was not going to play for Melbourne in 2021. She was going to retire. And we gave up pick 15 for her and Maddie Guerin. Guerin hasn't had much of a run at it. They don't seem to be huge fans of her. She only seems to play when we're down on numbers. But yeah, the O'Day trade has been a bit of a problem. And pick 15 for Melbourne was Eliza McNamara, who is a really talented, speedy, outside running wing, who is exactly what we could use right now.
Yeah, she's like another Georgia G type, I feel. Like, same sort of build and, very zippy. I do like watching her play.
She would be awesome in this team on the wing, which is pretty much exactly what we need opposite Brazali. So that gets across. We traded Jan Van Dyke for nothing. That's a cross. Could have used the defensive depth last night. We traded pick 56 to Gold Coast for Charlotte Hammonds, who hasn't really been in the team at all. And when she has, we haven't really noticed her. So that gets across. We drafted Mimi Hill, big tick, but bad luck, obviously. We drafted Daisy Walker. She was probably the best player at that point in the draft. So haven't really seen much from her, though, yet. We picked up Paige Trudgeon, who I think has been one of the standouts this year so far, playing as an undersized key defender. So have you heard anything about where Charlotte Wilson is? I haven't heard anything about what's going on there.
So they finally were a little bit more transparent with us. And she was out round 1 for the COVID health and safety protocols.
That bit.
Yeah. And she's been, I think she's been unwell or injured the last few weeks, but she's been training. But yeah, the transparency is,
It is Carlton. They're never transparent.
No, that's right.
They do a decent job with the injury reports. I'll give them that. But we tend to have a lot of them.
Yeah. But no, hopefully Charlotte's back.
Yeah, because she's really important. But Trudgeon's been good. Coming into this year, or at the end of last year, we delisted Al Downey and Katie Loynes. Downey immediately picked up by Collingwood and is one of their most important players. Huge cross, the biggest cross. Loynes hasn't looked great for GWS, but at the same time, would rather her on our list than theirs for another year. And then we traded out a veteran in Loynes and brought in a veteran in Dalpos, so that didn't really make sense to me either. What's the difference there? We got rid of Taylor Harris. We got pick 10 for her, which was Annie Lee, who's played every game, but I honestly haven't noticed her once. But obviously she's a teenager, so we'll give her some time. But yeah, haven't noticed her in any of the games so far, really. Then Jess Hosking wanted out on the final day of the trade period, which probably should have set off our alarm bells that another heart and soul player was like, get me out of this team and get me out on the last day of the trade period. That was an alarm bell, so I can't give that a tick. And then we found Jess Good out of nowhere to replace Serena Gibbs, which I think probably gets a small tick, but every move that we made almost has made the team worse and has made the list worse and not achieved the main goal of the team, which was, as you said earlier, find a star midfielder to put alongside Prespakis. If you're going to trade Taylor Harris, find a replacement for her that's ready to go. Build the midfield depth. They've accomplished none of that.
There's not.
Yeah.
And it's painful because you look at the quality that we lost in the Hosking girls, in Taylor, in Al Downey, in Katie Loynes. Like, they were the inaugural game changers for us. And they were a family. And every time we'd play at Icon Park, they would come up to us after the game and they would bring us part of the family. And they would always, and I obviously with COVID it's difficult, but when you see other teams going up to their fans and at least acknowledging them after the game, like Collingwood did a lap of honour after the game at Icon Park. And there was a couple of cheer squad members that went to Geelong the following week to watch us. Our players didn't even acknowledge they were there.
Really?
They didn't go over to them, didn't know. Yeah.
That's not good enough.
So, no. And
that's not what a good team does.
No. Look, and it's actually disheartening because it's like, well, what's going on behind the gate that we don't know about? Like, there's obviously a reason, aside from delisting Al Downey and Katie Loynes, the exit of Sarah Hosking, questionable. Why? Why then? Like,
I think she got a good deal from Richmond, but at the same time, you keep your heart and soul players, I think.
You fight tooth and nail to keep your best players.
Yeah.
Jess Hosking, that was the one, that was the nail in the coffin for me. And very, very, very disappointing. And one of my favourites, Natalie, is correct. Review should have gone down through to the AFLW as well. I don't know why the review was focused solely on the men because if they want to be one club, that includes the AFLW.
Yep, and the issues seem to be similar. We've got 3 all-Australian level players in the AFLW team carrying the load in Moody, Harrington and Prespakis, and not much of a system beneath them or a game plan that's outdated and hasn't been updated since it was successful in 2020,
No, it sounds familiar. It does. It sounds like a Patrick Cripps, a Jacob Wiedering, and a Harry Mackay situation, really.
It's exactly that. And I don't really get it. I thought what this team was doing so well in 2020 was that it was a full team game plan. It was a full team effort. We're relying on Prespakis in the midfield, sure, but the forward line was a unit, the back line was a unit, and now it seems like we're relying on star power again. If Moody doesn't win the tap out and put it down Maddie's throat, we go nowhere.
Well, just that, and I think it was a couple of times there were occasions where that did happen. Like Moody would tap it straight down into an oncoming Maddie Prespakis who would stream out of the centre, kick it to no one.
Yep.
Just
kick it into space. Yep.
Just kicking it in hope, and 9 times out of 10 it was marked by a Brisbane defender.
Yep. Which is crazy considering Brisbane were missing their defensive general for the first time in 6 years, and they were still more organised than us.
They were also without Sophie Conway, who's one of their best midfielders, and Ali Anderson didn't have her best game. And
Dakota Davidson didn't play either.
Exactly. Who's one of their best forwards.
Yep.
So, and they've come off COVID health and safety protocols. So it's like, well, what are we doing? What's happening with training? I feel for Simo being the defensive coach. He's working overtime with those defenders because the ball keeps getting peppered in there.
Yep.
And I give credit to the defenders last night for them to only hold Brisbane to 9 goals in the end. and they held them to a goalless third quarter. That's probably the only shining light I can give them.
It does sound like the men's team, doesn't it? Where the
Oh,
back line is trying to hold up and do its best.
look, we're going to relive that Port Adelaide game where we leaked all those goals. I've got PTSD.
I've blacked that out.
Oh, I think I'm going to try and black that out. It's going to take me a couple of years, but it is, and then it leads me into the next topic that I want to talk about, and coaching.
Yep.
I know we shouldn't really be critical of the coach, but Harford's been there since 2017, 2018?
2019, I think.
Or 2019. He took over from the inaugural coach.
Yeah,
and we were all like, oh, this is going to be fantastic. He was a hard, tough men's player for the Hawks. He played for the Blues. He's going to be really hard on him. He's going to make him tough. They were as soft as butter last night.
Yeah.
And then you see him a couple of days before doing special comments on a game.
And
I'm like, you can't comment on other teams if you can't even get your own team in line.
Yep. I think that's totally fair.
And I'm seeing familiar patterns with the game plan, and it's the same game plan that he had when he first started. You don't have the cattle to enforce this game plan. You don't have the structures and the capabilities that you would have had in 2019 when you had the already established players that had built up their careers. You can't expect an 18-year-old to do the job of a mature age 25-year-old who's been playing in the system for 4 or 5 years in the AFLW. And it annoys me. And everyone I've spoken to since last night have all questioned Daniel Harford's ability to coach this team and whether it's time that we tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, it's time to move on.
It's a great question. And I don't know the answer to that because I don't know whether the girls have lost faith in him. I'd heard that there were some issues last season and they obviously were shown on the field. Whether those were fixed or not, I don't know. I mean, based on last night's effort, you couldn't say that they have been. So it's hard to know, but he's been there long enough and the core isn't bad. If you flipped the coaches last night, I'd love to know what the result would have been because Brisbane was down a lot of talent and they relied on a lot of young players and they still beat us comfortably.
Comfortably is definitely the word I'd use. It was like we were training hats.
Yep.
The cones were just weaving their way through us. And the way they just broke open the midfield was just, I just can't. And I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like, I've heard that, like, from the games that, because I got there late for the round 1 game and I wasn't there for the Geelong game, but I've been told to keep my eye out this week on Sunday for who hangs out with who pre-game.
Yep.
And I'm getting the vibe that it's getting really cliquey.
That's not what you want.
No, and it's common. Obviously, it's common with girls. They kind of gravitate to certain people. So I don't want to kind of judge it, but I want to have a look for myself just to see. And Sandra's made me giggle. She's grabbed Teague's training manual. Look, probably. And it's looking likely.
It's frustrating because what made Half good at the start and what I enjoyed most about his coaching was the defensive systems, which is the opposite of Teague's problem, I guess, was we had the most organized backline in the comp in 2020. And even in 2021, it held up for the most part. Obviously, missing Gab Pound hurts. We've only missed her 3 times in 6 years. We haven't actually won a game of football without her, which is funny to say.
That's a staggering stat. I love it.
She's played in every single Carlton win. We're 0-3 without her.
Love her.
Yeah, well, her and Harrington are the backline, and everyone else folds in around her. Yeah. So not having her hurts. But again, Brisbane didn't have Kate Lutkins, who's the most important defender to any team in the competition.
And they
they
still
won the
managed to
game
hold us to 4 goals.
to 4 goals, despite having sufficient inside 50s and sufficient clearances. So
Literally, we were down 20 on inside 50s, but that's because every time we kicked the ball out of 50, it would rebound straight back because we were just kicking in hope.
Correct. And then we got trapped in there. We got trapped in their forward half for most of the game. Every time we would clear it, it would be a hack kick. The defensive structure of the Lions would kick in and they'd intercept and bring the ball back inside 50. We had no way of getting through it, which is another sign of a bad team. And I thought Chloe Malloy made some really good points on the commentary in the first quarter, saying that Carlton needed to take some uncontested marks, be composed, and not try to rush the ball up the ground or hack the ball out of the backline because it wasn't working and they just couldn't handle the pressure.
Probably the only comment that was actually worth listening to with Chloe Malloy because I just had to like drown her out. She was just so anti-Carlton towards the end of the game. It actually shit me to tears.
She's got black and white. I know her very well. She's got black and white blood.
Oh, she really does. And
Love
good
it.
on her, but commentate on the actual game, not the team.
Yeah.
But that's just my personal opinion of her. I agree here as well. No Wilson, no Pound, no Harrington, and Lala Whiffy can only do so much.
Yeah, Miller had a poor game too. She fumbled a couple of times early, and I think that shook her confidence a bit. So
yeah,
it was a bad game for a lot of regulars. I don't know, again, with a Tuesday night fly in, fly out game shuffle, and the most annoying part of that was pointed out to me by someone who would know was instead of having a 7-day break going into this North Melbourne game, we now have a 5-day break coming off an interstate trip, and because of the shift in the game, Gab Pound can't play this week because she's in health and safety protocols. And the Lions got all their players back for the Tuesday game. So we were at a disadvantage going into the game, and now we've got a disadvantage going into the North game.
Yeah, no, they postponed they pushed the game to Tuesday night to allow Brisbane to get as many players as they could. So it kind of makes you think, well, where's the fairness in that?
No. Though the fairness has gone out the window. They're just trying to get the season done at this point. They're trying to fit every game in, and every team is going to be disadvantaged at some point. And hopefully, we won't be, having games postponed and stuff like that.
No, well, let's hope not. That's probably the last thing we need right now is that because we're already bad enough without having to not have a game on. So
yes, or plays in COVID protocols. I don't think we can handle that.
No, and I don't think it's going to affect the men's season too much because I think I heard yesterday from someone pretty close to the ground, over 200 players currently have COVID in the men's. So
half the league,
half the league. So probably won't have the same issue.
And I think where Omicron is going down now. So and
so
even if it is. I'm pretty sure we'll see the league set up a pool of replacement players, and you'll see quite a few Carlton VFL players maybe getting a run, which will be fun in itself, I think.
Yeah, and that's we'll see how that goes. They should have done that for the AFLW instead of putting in the rule we had to have 16 primary players and 5 sign-on. They should have allowed them to look to VFL teams or lower division teams just to get the games away and not have to postpone them because postponing them and shifting them around so much, these girls don't.
Correct.
Most of them work full time outside of football. Football's not their first job. So shifting all these games around doesn't help their schedule, especially if they're mothers.
Yep.
So I think that it needs to be a little bit more flexible with who they can play.
Yeah.
Just to get the game away. Because, for instance, there's a girl like Daisy Pearce, for instance. If Melbourne have to push their games back for whatever reason, it's going to be hard on her with twins.
Yep.
They've got to try and look at it and readjust because
totally. And midweek games are going to be so tough because you can't just say, "Oh, I can't come to work this week. I've got to fly to Brisbane." It doesn't work like that.
No, you lose your job. Whereas the men's, it's their full-time job, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, correct. It's a problem with AFLW in general, and I've been saying it for years that expanding to 14 teams and then to 18 teams is ridiculous and too quick. And what they're doing is diluting the talent pool. What they're doing is meaning list sizes have to be smaller. And when you've got a list size of 30 and you need to use, 21 in a game, that means you have a tiny margin of error in case players are unavailable. So if Brisbane had an extra 10 players on their list, which they could if there were still 10 teams in the league, they probably wouldn't have needed to miss a game because they would have had comfortably 16 players available. So
well, that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's my frustration.
No, I'm 100% with you because I know I play locally and the weekends are hard enough to play.
Yeah.
And to get to training after work and all of that sort of stuff. So I can't imagine how much more difficult it would be at the elite level to juggle all of that because they train more times a week than a local league. I train twice a week and play on a weekend, whereas they train maybe 2, 3, 4 times a week and maybe on a Saturday if they're not playing till the Sunday.
They're pretty much treated like full-time athletes, but they don't get paid like it. Like we analyze them like a full-time athlete or a full-time team. They have to train pretty much like a full-time athlete and a full-time team, but they don't get paid for it. And the team doesn't get looked after in the same way,
No.
That's a frustration, I think, that is rightly had by most players.
It's going to be a long, long, long debate, and it'll be going on for a very, very, very long time. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the next player CBA gets worked out because, as Natalie says, Kez works 25 hours a week as a physio, and I work for SEN, by the way. So thanks for reading my article, Natalie.
Natalie loves listening to SEN, so you've got a very avid follower here as well. So
lovely. Yeah. Karen was basically saying that she works 25 hours a week as a physio, then has to pretty much train full time as a player. And I can't imagine what it was like for her having to, fly out on a Tuesday night, rearrange her life.
Yeah,
it's hard.
It is, and it's not something that you want to continue doing. But you do it for the love of football and love of playing football.
Exactly.
And
it would be great if they showed it on the field by laying a tackle or two.
Wow, that's it. But anyway, clean slate now.
Yes.
We've got that out of our system. I feel like I could talk all night about it, but I don't want to. Let's preview this week's game.
Yes.
We play North Melbourne at Icon Park Sunday 3:10.
For now.
Because every time I say who we're playing, it seems to change. So keep your eye on social media tomorrow to make sure it's actually happening. But I'm very, 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 very worried about this game. I obviously don't see us winning at all.
Nope.
Based on last night's performance, unless they pull a rabbit out of the hat and just magically win.
Yep.
Because I've watched, I'm a football nuffy, so I watch all the AFLW games that are on the weekend.
Yep.
And I watched North Melbourne on the weekend, and they were very clinical. The way they move the ball is very similar to Brisbane, quick and direct. And their backline's strong. I find I can't think of one player that will be able to stop Emma Carney unless you take Maddie Sparkus out of her role and make her tag her. Because we've lost Grace Egan, who would probably do that role. And you kind of want Lucy McAvoy to have an impact without having to tag. I'm just not seeing us coming away with the win here when you've got Jazzy Garner, Jenna Bruton,
Ash Riddell might have 7. She might have 60 disposals on the weekend. She's had 35 in successive weeks, Ash Riddell. So
and then you've got Caitlin Ashmore, who is an absolute ripper pickup for North Melbourne. I'm
a bit scared because usually what they do is they sit Bruton and they sit Garner on Prasparkas, make life as hard as possible for her, and then just say, well, the rest of your midfield needs to beat the rest of our midfield, and we absolutely can't. Last year, one of the main issues was Bree Moody won every hit out, and try to keep hitting it to Prasparkas, but Prasparkas was losing those one-on-one battles with her opponent. So if we can get Moody dominating the ruck and hitting maybe in a different direction, maybe focus on McAvoy, throw Georgia G in the midfield, try something, because last
Throw
time we
Jessica
played,
Pos in there. My God.
well, that's what her job is. Like, why are we playing her in the back pocket? We've got enough of those.
Look, I played against Jess Del Pos when we were playing juniors back in 2008, 2009, and she was in the midfield with me, and good luck catching her. Like, she has pace to burn, booming left foot. I don't understand why they're wasting her as a halfback or a back pocket, because she's having no impact. But if you put her on someone's hip and make her tag them all day, they're not going to touch the ball. Put her on Ash Riddell.
Yeah, that's a great role for her. Yeah, absolutely.
See what happens. And you know what? If it works, continue on with it. Try something different.
Yep. And if they don't, North will just smack us like they have the last few times. Their midfield will get on top of us, and it'll look exactly the same as the Brisbane game. It
is. And it's just one of those things where you just want them to put in some effort, something.
Yep.
And if he doesn't make structural changes, we're going to be sitting here next Wednesday having the exact same discussion.
Yep.
Because something needs to give.
Yeah, and we're not going to have Gab Pound, which is frustrating because she's still in the COVID protocols. Maybe Charlotte Wilson back. That would be handy. But I don't know. We don't have the depth. We brought in 2 debutants on top of the young players we already had in on the weekend, and there's just too many young players who don't really have their sea legs yet. Obviously, Grace Egan is still out for a while. Mimi Hill is still out for a while. Yeah, the young players on the list they don't seem ready, and we have veterans like Elise O'Day who don't really contribute that much, and key position players who are sort of stuck at both ends of the ground.
No, and Darcy tried to move up the ground last night, and they did okay. Like, they got the ball a couple of times, but they just didn't have the same impact. And the shot at goal that they had was not Darcy at all. And they just need to find the footy.
Yep.
And I love Darcy, but they need to find the footy. And as soon as they kick their first goal, I reckon the confidence will be up.
I'd start her on the half-forward flank this week, and I'd push her into the midfield.
Yep, Darcy's a confident player.
Yep. She needs to have the ball in her hands, and she hasn't had the ball in her hands all season. Hopefully we get Jess Good back, maybe. I don't know.
We need COVID safety as well, I'm pretty sure.
So she's probably not. Yeah. Maybe the move is throw Harrington forward. I don't know. We need a key position target. We need
our key defender though.
Yeah. We're a bit short on that. If only we had Alison Downey on the list, who wanted to play for Carlton this year.
That hurt.
Versatile key position player who's still capable of playing at the level. No, let's get rid of her.
Watching her round one made me sad, and it hurt a little bit more because after the game, when Collingwood were doing their lap of honour, she saw the Carlton cheer squad and she blew us a kiss, and I'm just like, I'm done. I'm done. Like, that's the appreciation they had for us.
Yeah.
And like, I still talk to Jess Hosking every now and then, and she misses us. Like, she does. She genuinely misses us, and she's disappointed that it ended the way it did.
Yeah.
But she's happy. She's happy now, and that's all we can hope for her, because we don't wish any ill health or ill will on any of the players that have departed us.
No.
But it just hurts because they've done it. Well, not they've done it, but the club. They mean the club. They've pushed them out one way or another.
It's a good point, because there are 5 players left from our inaugural list. 5. Yeah. It's been 6 years.
Yeah.
Pound, Vesio. No, Harrington wasn't there first year.
Oh no, that's right. Pound, Vesio, Brazali.
Yep. Who else?
Moody.
That's 4, and there's one more.
if someone knows who the 5th inaugural game changer is, please let me know in the comments. One that we haven't named yet. So we've said Darcy, we've said
Brisali,
Pound, Moody. There's one more.
Nat Plain.
Nat Plain. Thank you. Yeah, Nat Plain. But yeah, Nat Plain also plays VFL. So she's I haven't seen much of her this year either, to be fair.
No, they've been using her as a defensive sort of wing and hasn't really found much of the footy. But yeah, the fact that we had an inaugural group of players, we had the coaching was terrible for the first 2 years, but we had a group, and that group is gone. We have an essentially entirely different team, and a lot of this team is under the age of 23. And that's by choice. They've chosen to go down this path, and whether it costs them key players when Hawthorn and Essendon come in and come knocking on doors, that's my concern. What if Essendon comes to Maypres Parkes and says, "Hey, you grew up a Bombers fan. We want to make you the face of our franchise." Is she going to look back at Carlton and say, "Well, where are they going anytime soon?" That's my concern.
I've seen Essendon in the VFL. They're going to walk straight into this AFL system and have an impact straight away. 100%.
Think so?
Yeah. I've seen the quality of the Essendon list, and they've picked a couple of players that played for Essendon have been picked up on AFL lists. Amelia Yasser at Richmond, Georgie Prasparkas at Geelong. That's just a couple that off the top of my head, but no, they've got a good pool of talent at Essendon.
Hope not. Hope they're awful.
I hope not, but they do. As long as we beat them, that's all that matters.
Yep, and Hawthorn too, because their fans have sort of forced this expansion, and despite the fact that they twice said that they didn't want to be in AFLW, well, they got their way in the end. So screw them.
This is not happening.
Don't say that. No, absolutely not. No. We'll take Georgie out. See, if only we had been this bad last year, we could have had Georgie.
Look, I wanted Georgie. We all did, but it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. I know next week we have, not this week, the week after we've got the Crows, and they're struggling at the moment as well. But you don't knock the Crows because they may kill us. That's exactly right. No, it'll pretty much, between this week and next week, it'll pretty much define our season. Yeah. If we're not winning this week, we're not winning many games, if any more, and we're not making finals again.
Well, we've got a tough fixture. When that came out and I saw all the teams on there, it was pretty grim. At least that Fremantle game is no longer going to be in Perth. It'll be here somewhere. So
they're stuck in Melbourne
more winnable. Yeah. So that answers Sandra's question. It's round 4 this week, and it's a 9-round season. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 6 rounds left.
6 games
plus
left.
Finals, but we won't be there. So
we won't be there. No. Look, we had high hopes at the start of the year when I started this show. We had high hopes. We are round 4, and those hopes are gone. So
again, it's just like the men's team. Round 4, and hopes are gone.
Literally, it's a massive build up to round 1, and then we fall over.
Get smashed by Richmond. Yep.
That's not happening this year.
Not this year, though. Exactly.
All aboard the boss train.
For now.
So the next little piece that I want to do is we do this every week, and my good friend Michelle has kindly offered her tips every round this week, for this year, I should say. There's quite a few games this week. So she's gone an upset here. She's gone Freo over Collingwood.
They both look very good.
Yeah, they do. It's going to be a good game. Thursday night. Tomorrow night.
Thursday evening.
Yeah, tomorrow night, 5:10 at Vic Park. Not that I care. Giants over the Bulldogs, which is Friday night. Saints over the Eagles. Crows over the D's. Lions over the Cats. Suns over the Tigers. And no surprises here, North over the Blues.
Yes.
But there's also an extra couple of games that they're throwing into the mix next Tuesday. I think it's Pies play the Eagles and Freo play the Dogs. So in those two games, Michelle's won Pies over the Eagles and Freo over the Dogs. So what they've done is they've Sunday, I think the next games are on Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday, or they might be just Tuesday, both of them. I'm not 100% sure on that one. If someone wants to correct me, please do. To make up for the COVID safety protocols. So like they did with our game, they're making Collingwood play twice in 6 days, and they're making the Eagles do the same, Freo and Dogs to do the same, because I think Bulldogs have only played one game.
Yeah.
So they've got to try and make up a few games.
That St Kilda West Coast game is in trouble too, from what I've been told. A lot of Eagles players are in COVID protocols now, so...
Oh, the St Kilda West Coast. Oh, yeah, the West Coast Saints game Friday night. Yeah, no, I've heard.
There might be another postponement there.
There might be, because they were. There's a whole bunch of West Coast players are as of yesterday afternoon, I believe.
Yeah, in COVID protocols. Such is the season.
Such is the season. I'm just looking at the actual article on the AFLW page, and it's saying that several players are unavailable after being forced into isolation. So they said a number of players and staff, didn't really say who. So
no, they'll keep that quiet until the game is postponed, which is a shame. So it's interesting because how many days? Like if you're getting players to play every 6 days. We're seeing a lot of injuries early in the season. I hope that doesn't continue across the season, but they're asking a lot of these players and not paying them enough for it.
No, we've had that conversation earlier, and it's going to be, like I said, a long debate that'll go for many, many years to come, especially with the new teams coming in. So look, these COVID safety protocols are there for a reason, to help protect all the players in the league, but the league need to expand the capabilities of the players to allow more players to be available, because you can't keep postponing games because
you're going to run out of time.
You aren't going to run out of time because it's meant to coincide with the men's round 1, the finals. So look, I'm all for them to start in January like they did, but make more players available to each of the teams respectively, so it's all fair, because they're semi-professional really, because like we said before, they've got full-time jobs. They can't just drop things for the sake of playing, not with the money they get anyway. So, but that's another discussion for another day.
Yep.
On that note, we'll wrap it up for this evening. I want to thank you for joining me, Nick. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting with you. You're more than welcome to come back at any point, because it's a great conversation. We talk really well about the Blues, don't we? It's great.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to come on, and hopefully I can come on after a win instead of a loss.
Yeah, well, you said to me earlier that you've only ever been on the on Blue and Broad shows after a loss, so we've got to try and change that.
Any Carlton podcast, every single Carlton podcast I've been on has been after a loss. Always.
Well, maybe we'll reserve the next time you come on after we win.
Yeah, in 2023. Yep.
Oh, goodness me.
That'll be our next one.
I hope we're wrong, and I hope the girls have an absolute blinder this weekend and pull a massive rabbit out of the hat, and this was just a once-off. But we just have to go with what we see, and I'll back the girls 110% like we do the boys. We're suckers for punishment, but we love them anyway. Up the Baggers. See you all there at Icon Park on Sunday. And if you're a Carlton member, get down to watch the boys on Saturday morning for another open training session.
Absolutely.
I'll be there. See you, everyone.